My name is Esther Blackwell, and I am 74 years old. The night my daughter stole my jewelry and disappeared, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, holding an empty velvet box in my hands, staring at the dent where my wedding ring used to rest. The house was silent, too silent, and in that silence, I knew something terrible had already happened. Before I take you back, let me say this first. If you love real, emotional stories about family betrayal, hidden secrets, and strong women who survive the unthinkable, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss stories like mine. And please tell me in the comments which part of the country you're watching from, so I know who is standing with me tonight. Because what I discovered after my daughter vanished was darker than anything I ever imagined. I didn't notice the jewelry right away. That's the part that still hurts the most, because it means I trusted her. Earlier that evening, my daughter Maribel had come over unannounced. She used to do that a lot, walking like the house was still hers. "Mama, you home?" she called out, her voice light, almost cheerful. "I'm in the kitchen," I replied. She came in smiling, hugging me too tight, smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. "You look tired," she said. "I am tired," I replied. "You startled me." She laughed. "You always say that," she said. But her eyes kept moving. Watching. Measuring. Maribel was 46 years old. But that night, she looked like a girl pretending to be calm. Her hands shook when she reached for a glass of water. Her smile stayed a little too long. I should have noticed. A mother always should. She asked questions. Too many. How long you had that necklace? You still got Grandma's bracelet. You ever think about selling any of it? I frowned. Why you asking? I said. She shrugged. Just curious, she replied too quickly. Curious? That word echoed in my head later, like a warning bell I ignored. After she left, the house felt wrong. Not quiet. Hollow. Like something had slipped out while my back was turned. I checked the front door. Locked. The windows. Fine. I told myself I was imagining things. Old women do that sometimes. Or so I thought. It wasn't until I went to bed that I noticed. The jewelry box. Open. Empty. My heart dropped so fast it felt like I had missed a step. No, 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 I whispered, opening drawers, checking shelves, pulling out scarves and old letters. Gone. The gold chain my mother gave me. The ring from my wedding. The bracelet I wore when my first child was born. All gone. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor and cried into my hands. I reached for my phone and called Maribel. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. I texted. Maribel, call me now. No reply. I checked the time. 11:47 p.m. Too late to be normal. Too early to panic. But panic came anyway. I searched the house like maybe the jewelry had legs. Like it could come back if I looked hard enough. Then I noticed something else. My laptop. Moved. Not gone. Just shifted. The screen had fingerprints on it. Fresh ones. My stomach turned. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the dark screen. Maribel had always been good with computers. Too good. She used to help me pay bills online. Help me organize things. I had trusted her. My hands trembled as I opened the laptop. It was already on. The screen glowed softly. And then I saw it. My email. Open. Messages I didn't recognize. Folders I never created. Names that made no sense. That's when fear changed shape. This wasn't just theft. This was something planned. Something hidden. Something my daughter didn't want me to see. I clicked one folder by accident. And what appeared on the screen made my breath catch in my throat. Numbers. Names. Messages written in codes. My name. Her name. And other names I had never seen before. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding so loud I thought the neighbors might hear it. "What did you do, Maribel?" I whispered. The house stayed silent, but the screen answered. That was the moment I understood something terrible. My daughter didn't just steal my jewelry. She stole my access, my trust, my safety, and whatever she was running from. She had dragged me into it. I picked up the phone again and dialed her number one more time. Straight to voicemail. But this time, I didn't leave a message. I opened the laptop wider, straightened my back, and logged in. Because if my daughter had disappeared into darkness, I was about to follow her trail. And what I was about to uncover would change everything I thought I knew about my child. The clock on the wall said 12:18 a.m. I had lived long enough to know when a night was going to change the rest of your life. This was one of those nights. The house felt smaller as I sat at the kitchen table, the laptop open in front of me, its soft hum filling the silence. My hands were still shaking, but my mind had gone sharp in a way it hadn't in years. Fear had knocked first. Now curiosity had taken over. And curiosity, I would soon learn, is dangerous. I stared at the screen. My email was open, but it didn't look like my email. Folders lined the side, neatly labeled with names I didn't recognize. Dates that meant nothing to me. Subject lines written in strange half-sentences, like someone didn't want the full truth written down. I whispered to myself, "Okay, Esther, slow down." I clicked on one message. It didn't open. A password box appeared. My heart sank. Of course she had locked things. Maribel was always careful, always 10 steps ahead. Even as a child, she hid things in plain sight. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. "What would you use?" I murmured. I tried the obvious first. Her birthday. Denied. Her childhood nickname. Denied. Her son's name. Denied. Each wrong attempt made my chest tighter. Then I remembered something small. Something silly. Something only a mother would remember. Maribel used to be afraid of storms when she was little. She'd crawl into my bed during thunder, shaking, whispering, "Mama, don't let the sky break." One night when she was about 7, she told me, "If I ever have a secret code, I'll use the name of my favorite place." "Where, that?" I asked back then. "Under the mango tree at Grandma's house," she said. I opened my eyes. My fingers hovered over the keys. I typed it, and the screen changed. The folder opened. My stomach dropped. Inside were dozens of messages. Not casual ones. Serious ones. Messages about money. About deliveries. About keeping things quiet. Words like transfer, deadline, and "don't mess this up" jumped off the screen. My mouth went dry. This wasn't just about stolen jewelry. This was about something bigger. Something darker. I scrolled slowly, my heart pounding. Names appeared again and again. Not just Maribel. Other women. Other men. Some with pictures attached. Faces I didn't recognize. I clicked on one by accident. A photograph filled the screen. It was my bracelet. The one with the small crack near the clasp. The one I wore to church every Sunday. Under the picture was a price. I gasped and slapped my hand over my mouth. She had already listed it. Not hidden it. Not borrowed it. Sold it. "No, no, no," I whispered. My vision blurred, but I forced myself to keep looking. Another picture. My necklace. Another price. Another message underneath. High quality, real gold, no questions. My chest hurt so badly, I thought I might pass out. This wasn't a mistake. This was a business. I pushed back from the table and stood up, packing the kitchen. My daughter. My baby girl. The one I taught to say please and thank you. The one whose hair I braided before school. What had she become? And how long had this been going on? I sat back down and kept digging. The deeper I went, the uglier it got. Fake names. Burner emails. Encrypted chats. Messages that disappeared after reading. It felt like I was peeling back layers of a person I didn't know. And the worst part, she had used me. My computer. My internet. My address. My name appeared in more places than I liked. That's when fear came back, heavier this time. Esther, I said out loud, you're in danger. I wasn't just a victim. I was a cover. I opened another folder. This one was labeled simply, History. My hands shook as I clicked it. Inside were timelines. Dates. Notes. Everything written neatly, like a planner. It showed when she visited me. What she took. What she accessed. Even notes about my habits. Mama goes to bed early. Laptop usually unlocked. Doesn't check bank often. I felt sick. My own child had studied me. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Because now, this wasn't just about stolen jewelry. This was about my safety. My freedom. My name. If something went wrong, who would they come for? Me. I heard a sound then. A small one. The house settling. But my heart jumped anyway. I stood still, listening. Nothing. Just the refrigerator humming. Still, I locked the back door again. Then the front. Then I returned to the table and closed the laptop halfway, like it might bite me. I picked up my phone. My fingers hovered over Maribel's contact. I didn't call. Calling would give her time. Calling would warn her. I needed to understand first. I scrolled further. And that's when I saw something that made my blood run cold. A message thread titled with my initials. eBay. I opened it. Inside were plans. Discussions. Arguments. About me. She's old, she won't notice. Just make sure nothing links back to her. If things get messy, she's the story. I covered my mouth as a sob escaped. She would never, I whispered. But the words were right there. Black and white. Cold. Clear. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. My daughter hadn't just disappeared. She had positioned herself to disappear. And she had left me standing in her place. I checked the time again. 1:46 a.m. Too late to pretend this wasn't real. Too early to know what to do. I did the only thing that made sense. I took pictures. Of everything. Every message. Every price. Every note. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped my phone. But I kept going. Because somewhere deep inside me, a voice I hadn't listened to in years spoke up. Protect yourself. When I finished, I closed the laptop completely and pushed it away. I sat there in the dark kitchen, my face wet with tears, my heart aching in a way I had never felt before. This pain wasn't sharp. It was hollow. Like something had been taken that could never be returned. At 2:10 a.m. my phone buzzed. A message. From Maribel. Just one line. Please don't look into things you don't understand. My breath caught. She knew. She knew I had seen something. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Where are you? The message showed as read. No reply. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then I whispered to the empty kitchen, What have you done, my child? The house did not answer. But I knew one thing for sure. This was no longer just a mother chasing answers. This was a woman standing at the edge of a very dark truth. And in the morning, I would have to decide whether to stay silent and be swallowed by it, or step into the light and risk losing my daughter forever. I did not sleep, not even for a minute. When morning came, it did not feel like a new day. It felt like the same night, just brighter and crueler. The sun came through the kitchen window and landed on the table where my laptop sat, closed and silent, like it was hiding its teeth. I made coffee I did not drink. I sat in the same chair I had been in all night. And I realized something that made my stomach twist. Maribel wanted me to find this. I had spent hours believing I had outsmarted her, that I guessed the password, that I uncovered something hidden. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. She had left the laptop on. She had left the email open. She had not logged out. And she knew me better than anyone. She knew curiosity would beat fear. She knew I would look. Why? I whispered to the empty kitchen. I pressed my palms flat on the table and forced myself to think slowly. Panic would help no one. I needed to understand what kind of danger I was in, and how deep she had already dragged me. I opened the laptop again. This time, my hands were steadier. Fear was still there, but something else had taken over: focus. I went straight back to the folder labeled History. I read every line carefully, like I was studying a stranger's diary written about me. Mama goes to church Sundays. Mama trusts me. Mama never checks spam. Each sentence felt like a small betrayal. Not loud. Not dramatic. Quiet. Calculated. I followed the dates. They went back years. Longer than I wanted to believe. This wasn't something that happened suddenly. This wasn't desperation. This was a life she had been living right under my nose. I clicked into another folder I hadn't opened before. It was labeled Contacts. Inside were names with numbers beside them. Some had little notes. Reliable. Risky. Don't mention EB. My initials again. I felt cold. Very cold. Then I saw something that made my heart stop. An address. Not mine. But close. Too close. 3 streets away. I recognized it immediately. An old duplex near the bus stop. Abandoned looking. Paint peeling. Windows always dark. I had walked past it 100 times. Never looked twice. I zoomed in on the message thread attached to it. Drop point confirmed. Jewelry already moved. She won't trace it back. I leaned back in my chair. My daughter had not just stolen from me. She had used my home as a starting point. A safe place. A blind spot. I felt sick. But I also felt something else. Anger. Not loud anger. Focused anger. The kind that makes decisions. Around 9 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Mama, Maribel said softly. My chest tightened. Where are you? I asked. She laughed quietly. You always ask questions, she said. That's your problem. My hands clenched. Why did you take my jewelry? I demanded. Because I needed it, she replied, and because you wouldn't say no. The truth in that sentence hurt more than the theft. Why didn't you just ask? I whispered. There was a pause. Because asking gives you a choice, she said, and I didn't want one. I closed my eyes. You put me in danger, I said. Another pause. Then her voice hardened. Only if you make noise, she replied. If you stay quiet, you'll be fine. That was when I understood. She wasn't afraid for me. She was managing me. Maribel, I said slowly, what did you get involved in? She exhaled. Things you wouldn't understand, she said. Things that pay. And the people you work with, I asked, do they know me? She didn't answer right away. That was answer enough. You logged into my life, I said. Now you want me to disappear in it. Her voice dropped. You always said you'd protect me, she said. The old sentence. The familiar knife. I felt it twist. Then I pushed it away. I protected you when you were a child, I replied. Not when you chose this. She laughed again, sharp this time. You think you're brave now, she said. Don't be stupid. Is that a threat? I asked. Another pause. I'm saying be careful, she said. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, my hands numb. My daughter had not disappeared. She had stepped into the shadows and expected me to stay in the light, silent and still, as cover. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street. Cars passed. People lived. The world kept moving. I made a decision then. A hard one. A dangerous one. I would not stay quiet. But I would not rush either. I printed everything. Every message. Every image. Every plan. I placed the papers in neat stacks. Then I put them in a folder. Not hidden. Ready. Around noon, I left the house. That alone felt risky. But I refused to shrink. I drove past the duplex. Slowly. I did not stop. But I saw movement behind a curtain. Someone was there. Watching. Waiting. My heart pounded as I drove away. She had not just used me. She had positioned me near something active. Something ongoing. And if anything went wrong, I would be the easy story. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking again. I locked the doors, closed the curtains, and sat down. I knew now. This wasn't just about stolen jewelry. This was about survival. At 3:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message. Not from Marable. From an unknown number. We know you looked. My blood ran cold. I stared at the screen. Then another message came. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I leaned back in my chair, my heart hammering. This was bigger than my daughter. Bigger than family. Bigger than anything I had ever faced. And the scariest part, they were watching me. Right now. I whispered to myself, think, Esther, think. Running would make me suspicious. Silence would make me useful. But truth could make me dangerous. As the sun dipped lower, I knew one thing for certain. I could no longer pretend this was a private family matter. Because the darkness my daughter disappeared into had just found its way to my door. And tomorrow, I would have to decide who I was willing to trust. Because one wrong move could cost me far more than jewelry. I sat very still after those messages. My phone lay on the table, the screen dark now, like it was pretending nothing had happened. But my body knew better. My skin felt tight. My ears rang. Every sound in the house felt louder than it should have been. We know you looked. That sentence kept replaying in my head. Not I know. Wait. That meant more than one person. That meant Marable wasn't acting alone. I stood up slowly and walked through the house. I checked the front window, just a small pull of the curtain. The street looked normal. A woman walked her dog. A car drove past, nothing out of place. But danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits for you to relax. I locked every door again, even the ones I had already locked. Then I went back to the kitchen and sat down. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been before. I was done pretending this was just a family problem. This was bigger, and I could not face it alone. For a long time, I stared at the phone, thinking about who I could call. Not family. Not church. Not neighbors. This needed someone who understood systems, paper trails, threats that hide behind screens. Someone who would not panic. Someone who would not tell me to just let it go. Then I thought of Nolan Price. He was my late husband's nephew. Not close family, but close enough. He worked in cybersecurity for a bank in another city. I remembered him helping me once years ago when my email got hacked. Back then, he had said something that stuck with me. Most people don't get in trouble because they're careless, he said. They get in trouble because they trust the wrong person for too long. I picked up the phone. It rang twice before he answered. Aunt Esther, he said, surprised. Everything okay? No, I replied. I need help. He didn't ask questions. Talk to me, he said. I told him everything. Not all at once. Not neatly. I told him about the jewelry, the laptop, the messages, the threats. I heard his breathing change on the other end of the line. Slower, more focused. Did you save everything? He asked. Yes, I said. Pictures, screenshots, printouts. Good, he replied. Very good. There was a pause. Esther, he said carefully, you are right to be scared, but you did the right thing by calling. That alone made my eyes burn. Do not reply to any more messages, he continued. Do not confront your daughter again, and do not move those files off your house without a plan. I drove past one of the addresses, I admitted quietly. He sucked in a breath. Don't do that again, he said firmly. That tells me this isn't small. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. What do I do now? I asked. Another pause. Now, he said, we slow this down and make you harder to touch. He asked me to read the messages out loud, every word, every detail. When I mentioned the line, if things get messy, she's the story, he went silent for a long time. That's not just planning, he said finally. That's positioning. The word made my stomach twist. So they were setting me up, I whispered. Yes, he replied, and they expected you to stay quiet. I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear, because the danger was real. Relief, because I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't crazy. I'm coming tomorrow, Nolan said. I'll bring a clean laptop. We'll copy everything and secure it. Tomorrow, I asked. Yes, he replied. Tonight, you stay in, you don't answer the door, and if anyone shows up, you call the police, not me. I swallowed. Okay, I said. And Esther, he added, whatever your daughter is mixed up in, it's not just theft. I already knew that. But hearing it from him made it real in a new way. After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen for a long time. I looked around at the house. The pictures on the wall. The couch where Maribel used to nap. The hallway where she learned to walk. This place had held my whole life. And now it was a risk. As evening came, I cooked dinner I didn't eat. I kept the lights on. Every time a car passed, my heart jumped. I checked my phone again. No new messages. That worried me more than threats. Around 8 p.m., someone knocked on the door. Just one knock. Soft. Polite. I froze. I did not move. The knock came again. Mrs. Blackwell, a man's voice called. We're looking for Maribel. My heart slammed into my ribs. I stayed silent. I know you're home, the voice said. We just want to talk. I stepped back slowly and reached for my phone. Then the voice added something that made my blood run cold. She told us you might be confused. That was it. I called the police. I did not warn. I did not explain. I just called. By the time the sirens came, the man was gone. But the message was clear. They were no longer hiding. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in my chair, fully dressed, waiting for morning. Waiting for Nolan. Waiting for answers. When dawn finally came, it felt like a victory. Not because I was safe, but because I had made it through the night without giving in to fear. At 9:12 a.m., Nolan pulled into my driveway. Seeing him felt like breathing again. He hugged me tight. You did good, he said quietly. Inside, we worked for hours. He showed me things I didn't understand but trusted. Encrypted backups, secure storage, hidden logs. This, he said, pointing at the screen, is proof they underestimated you. By the afternoon, my life was officially split in two. Before I logged in. After I logged in. And there was no going back. As Nolan packed up, he looked at me seriously. Esther, he said, whatever happens next, you need to be ready. Ready for what? I asked. He hesitated. For your daughter to come back, he said, not as a child, but as someone desperate. My chest tightened. And when she does, he added, everything will change. As his car drove away, my phone buzzed. One new message. From Maribel. We need to talk, tonight. My hands trembled. I stared at the screen. This was it. The moment I had been dreading. The moment I had been preparing for. Because tonight, I would come face to face with the truth. Not just about her, but about how far a mother is willing to go when love and survival stand on opposite sides. Maribel came back that night. Not in the way I imagined. Not screaming. Not crying. Not running into my arms. She came back like a stranger who already knew the house no longer belonged to her. It was a little after 9 p.m. when I heard the car pull up. I was sitting in the living room with all the lights on. Nolan had insisted I keep them on. Darkness gives confidence to the wrong people, he said. My heart started pounding the moment the engine shut off. I didn't move. I didn't rush to the door. I waited. There was a knock. Soft, careful. Mom, Maribel said through the door. It's me. My chest tightened. I stood up slowly and walked toward the door, stopping a few steps away. You said tonight, I said. You're early. She laughed nervously. I didn't want to be late, she replied. That was Maribel. Always careful with time when something mattered to her. I did not open the door right away. Are you alone? I asked. There was a pause. Yes, she said, I swear. I believed she thought she was telling the truth. That didn't mean she was. I unlocked the door but didn't open it wide, just enough to see her. She looked different. Thinner. Tired. Her eyes darted left and right like she was always counting exits. She wasn't wearing the clothes she had on the last time I saw her. These were darker. Plainer, like she didn't want to be remembered. Can I come in? She asked. I studied her face. You can come in, I said, but you won't be staying. Her jaw tightened. Mom. No, I said calmly. Inside, sit, talk, then you leave. She hesitated, then nodded. She stepped inside and looked around like she was seeing the place for the first time. You changed things, she said. No, I replied. I just turned the lights on. She flinched. We sat at opposite ends of the living room. Distance mattered now. You looked, she said finally. Yes, I replied. How much? She asked. All of it, I said. Her face went pale. She rubbed her hands together. I didn't want you involved, she said. You made me involved, I replied. She sighed, frustrated. You don't understand how deep this goes, she said. I understand enough, I replied. You stole from me, you used me, and you left me to take the fall. Her eyes filled with tears. That wasn't the plan, she whispered. But it was a possibility, I said, and you were okay with that. She didn't deny it. I needed money, she said, fast. You needed jewelry, I corrected. She snapped her head up. You always make it sound worse than it is, she said. I leaned forward. It is worse, I said, because you knew exactly what you were doing. Her shoulders slumped. They would have hurt me if I didn't deliver, she said quietly. My heart twisted. Who? I asked. She hesitated. You don't want names, she said, Trust me. I shook my head. You already decided what I want too many times, I said. Not anymore. She wiped her eyes. I thought if I could just get through this one last job, she said. One last lie, I finished. She looked at me sharply. You don't know what it's like to be trapped, she said. I held her gaze. I raised children, I said. I know exactly what it's like. Silence fell between us. Heavy. Unforgiving. I saw the messages, I said. The ones where you called me the story. She sucked in a sharp breath. That wasn't me, she said quickly. That was them. But you didn't stop it, I replied. Her eyes filled again. I thought I could control it, she whispered. I nodded slowly. So did I said, for years. That made her look at me differently. She stood up suddenly. I can fix this, she said. I just need time. No, I said. She froze. No, she repeated. No more time, I said. No more secrets, no more using me. Her voice rose. You're choosing papers and strangers over your own daughter. I stood too. I'm choosing the truth, I said. And if you're standing against it, that's your choice. Her face twisted with anger and fear. You're gonna ruin everything, she said. You already did, I replied. I'm just cleaning up. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed bitterly. You think they'll protect you, she said. You think logging in makes you safe. I think staying silent makes me dead, I said. That shut her up. She walked toward the door. Then stopped. You always said you'd be there for me, she said quietly. I felt the old ache rise. But I didn't let it control me. I am here, I said, just not as your cover. She opened the door. Before stepping out, she turned back. They won't stop, she said, even if I do. I nodded. I know, I said. She left. The door closed behind her with a final, heavy click. I locked it, then leaned against it. My legs shook. My heart ached. But I did not cry. Because for the first time, I had said everything that needed to be said. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message. From Nolan. Did she come? I typed back. Yes, and she left. Another message came almost immediately. Then we moved forward. I looked around my living room. The same furniture. The same walls. But the air felt different. Cleaner. Harder. Honest. I understood something then. Love doesn't mean saving someone from the consequences of their choices. Sometimes, love means refusing to drown with them. And tonight, I had finally learned how to stay afloat. But the danger wasn't gone. Not yet. Because when people realize you won't protect their lies, they get desperate. And desperation makes people do terrible things. The morning after Maribel left, the house felt heavier. Not darker. Heavier. Like the walls had absorbed every word we said the night before and were still holding them inside. I woke up with my jaw tight and my head aching. My body felt like I had run a long distance without moving at all. I lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet. No knocks. No messages. No footsteps outside. That worried me more than noise ever could. I got up and moved slowly through the house, checking each room like I was counting something precious. Everything was where I left it. But I no longer trusted appearances. I made tea and sat at the table, the same place where this nightmare had started. The laptop sat in front of me, closed, innocent-looking. I didn't open it yet. I needed to think. Maribel's words from the night before echoed in my head. They won't stop, even if I do. That sentence wrapped itself around my chest and squeezed. If that was true, then staying quiet would not save me. It would only make me easier to use. Around 9 a.m., Nolan called. Did anything happen after she left? He asked. No, I replied. That's what scares me. He hummed thoughtfully. Silence after confrontation usually means regrouping, he said, not retreat. I closed my eyes. So what do? I asked. We stop pretending this is just digital, he replied, and we bring in people who deal with real-world consequences. My heart skipped. You mean the police? I asked. Yes, he said, but carefully. I had known this moment was coming. I just hadn't wanted to face it. Calling the police meant there would be no going back, no soft landing, no pretending this was still about family. It meant my daughter's choices would become part of a larger story, and I would be the one telling it. I need time, I said quietly. Nolan didn't argue. Take today, he said, but don't take longer. After the call, I sat alone and cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just slow tears that slid down my face and dropped onto the table. I cried for the girl Maribel used to be. I cried for the woman she had become. And I cried for myself, because no mother dreams of this ending. By noon, I felt something change inside me. The crying stopped. The fear settled. And resolve took its place. I opened the laptop. This time, I didn't explore. I organized. I created folders. Dates. Screenshots. Messages. Images of the jewelry listings. Notes where my initials were used like a shield. I labeled everything clearly. Not emotionally. Factually. This wasn't about how I felt anymore. This was about what existed. As I worked, I noticed something new. Patterns. Messages sent late at night. Transfers timed around Maribel's visits to my house. Conversations that always ended with, "She won't notice." My stomach turned. They didn't just underestimate me. They dismissed me. At 2:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it. Let it ring. Then it stopped. A second later, a message came through. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I felt my pulse quicken. Then another message. This can still end quietly. I laughed softly. Quietly. That word again. I typed back one sentence. It already is. Then I turned my phone off. My hands shook, but my spine stayed straight. The afternoon dragged. Every sound outside made me look up. A car door. Footsteps. Voices. But nothing happened. That told me something important. They were watching. Not acting. Yet. At 5 p.m., Nolan came back. This time, he brought someone with him. A woman in her late 40s, calm eyes, plain clothes. This is Detective Harris, Nolan said. She specializes in financial and digital crimes. My chest tightened. Detective. This was real now. We sat at the table. I laid everything out. The detective didn't interrupt. Didn't react. She just listened. Watched. Took notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You did the right thing by preserving all of this, she said. Am I in trouble? I asked quietly. She met my eyes. No, she said firmly. You're a witness and potentially a target. That word settled heavily in my chest. Target. She asked me careful questions. When did Maribel first help with my computer? How often did she visit? Did anyone else have access to my devices? I answered honestly. Each answer painted a clearer picture. And the picture was ugly. They used your credibility, Detective Harris said. Your age, your clean record, your address. I nodded. She was always good at finding shortcuts, I said. Shortcuts usually lead somewhere dangerous, she replied. By early evening, they had copied everything. Multiple backups. Different locations. I watched Nolan unplug the laptop and place it in a sealed bag. It's evidence now, he said. I exhaled. That chapter was closed. As they stood to leave, Detective Harris paused. Mrs. Blackwell, she said, there's something you should be prepared for. I braced myself. Once this starts moving, she continued, people may try to scare you, or charm you, or blame you. I smiled sadly. They already tried, I said. She nodded. Good, she replied. Then you won't be surprised. That night, after they left, the house felt emptier than ever. But also safer. Like the truth had finally been allowed to breathe. I slept for a few hours. Deep. Dreamless. But I woke up suddenly at 3:12 a.m. Heart racing. Because something felt wrong. I listened. Held my breath. Then I heard it. A car idling outside. Too long. Too still. I moved quietly to the window and peeked through the curtain. A dark sedan sat across the street. Engine running. Lights off. My heart pounded. This was no accident. I backed away from the window and reached for my phone. Turned it back on. One missed call. One voicemail. Unknown number. My hands shook as I played it. A man's voice. Calm. Controlled. Mrs. Blackwell, he said, we just want what belongs to us, and then this can all go away. The message ended. I stood in the dark kitchen, my heart hammering. This was it. The moment where fear would have taken over before. Where I would have apologized. Hidden. Begged. But something inside me had changed. I dialed the number Detective Harris gave me. Answered on the second ring. They're outside, I said calmly, and they left a message. I'm on my way, she replied. Stay inside. I hung up and locked every door again. Then I sat at the table and waited. As sirens approached in the distance, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The truth was no longer mine to carry alone. And whatever came next, I would not face it in silence, because my daughter had logged me into her dark past. But now, that past was stepping into the light. The sirens came fast. Too fast for the fear to build the way it used to. I stood in the kitchen with both hands on the table, breathing slow, listening as the sound grew louder, then split into echoes bouncing off the houses on my street. Red and blue lights washed over my curtains. The dark sedan outside rolled forward, like it wanted to disappear into the night. But it didn't make it far. I watched through the small crack in the curtain as two police cars boxed it in. Doors opened. Voices rose, firm, controlled. The engine shut off. For the first time since all this began, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief. Readiness. A knock came at my door. Not the kind that makes your heart jump. The kind that makes you stand taller. Mrs. Blackwell, a woman's voice called. It's Detective Harris. I opened the door fully. She stood there with two officers behind her. You did exactly right, she said. Can we come in? Yes, I replied. My voice didn't shake. They sat at the table with me, while other officers questioned the men outside. Detective Harris placed a small recorder on the table. Tell me everything you've received since we last spoke, she said. So I did. The messages. The calls. The voicemail. When I finished, she nodded slowly. This confirms escalation, she said, which means we move faster now. I swallowed. Am I in danger? I asked. She met my eyes. You were, she said. Tonight you're protected. One of the officers came in quietly and spoke to her in a low voice. She nodded again. They're claiming they're just here to retrieve property, she told me. Jewelry. I laughed once. A short, sharp sound. That jewelry was stolen from me, I said, and sold. She gave a small, firm smile. Exactly, she said. They stayed for over an hour. Took statements. Photographs. Copies of the voicemail. When they finally left, the street was quiet again. Too quiet. But this time, it didn't feel dangerous. It felt watched in the right way. After Detective Harris left, she turned back to me at the door. "There's something else," she said. "Your daughter may be contacted or pressured." My stomach tightened. "I expected that," I said. "She may come back," the detective continued. "Not to threaten you, to plead." I nodded. "I know," I said. "And when she does," Harris said gently, "you need to decide now what your line is." I didn't answer right away. Because I already knew. Maribel came back 2 days later. In daylight. Like she wanted witnesses. She stood on the sidewalk this time, not the porch, hands empty, face pale. I watched her from the window for a long moment before opening the door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Lost. "Mama," she said softly when she saw me. I stayed where I was. "You can talk," I said, "from there." Her eyes filled with tears. "They're scared," she said. "Things are falling apart." I nodded. "They should be," I replied. She stepped closer, stopping where the sidewalk met the path. "They think you turned on them," she said. "I didn't turn on anyone," I said. "I told the truth." She shook her head. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Once you're in, there is no out." I held her gaze. "There's always an out," I said. "It just costs more than people want to pay." She dropped her eyes. "I never meant for you to get hurt," she said. "But you meant for me to be used," I replied. She flinched. "I was desperate," she said. "So was I," I replied. "For years." She took another step forward. "Please," she said. "If you just say it was a mistake, that you didn't know." I felt the old pull then. The mother's instinct. The urge to fix. To erase. To protect. I breathed through it. "No," I said. Her head snapped up. "You're choosing them over me," she said. I shook my head slowly. "I'm choosing to live," I replied. She started crying then. Real tears. Ugly ones. The kind that come when lies no longer work. "They'll take everything," she said. "My life, my future." I stepped forward, just enough for her to see my face clearly. "You already gambled those," I said gently. "I won't gamble mine too." She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not as a shield. Not as a cover. But as a person. "You really won't save me," she said. I answered honestly. "I will not lie for you," I said, "but I will tell the truth." She nodded slowly. Like something had finally settled. When she turned and walked away, she didn't look back. And for the first time, neither did I. That night, I slept deeply. Not because the danger was gone, but because my choice was final. The next morning, Detective Harris called. "They're making arrests," she said, "and your cooperation made a difference." I closed my eyes. "Thank you," I said. "There's one more thing," she added. "Your daughter has asked for a lawyer." My heart squeezed, then steadied. "I understand," I said. After the call, I sat alone and thought about what love really meant. Not rescue. Not sacrifice. But truth. Even when it hurts. Especially then. I realized something important. My daughter's dark past didn't begin with crime. It began with entitlement. With believing someone else would always pay the price. That ended with me. As the sun rose higher, I felt lighter. Not happy. But free. And I knew the hardest part was still ahead. Because the final test of love is what you do when the truth demands a cost you never wanted to pay. The first thing I noticed was how fast silence disappears once the truth steps outside. I woke up that morning to my phone buzzing on the table. Not ringing, buzzing, one message after another. The kind of sound that tells you something has already spread and you are the last to catch up. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the phone, breathing slowly. I already knew what it was. The world had found out. The news didn't come from television. It came from people. Neighbors. Church friends. Old contacts I hadn't spoken to in years. Some messages were gentle. "Esther, are you okay? I'm praying for you." Others were careful. "I heard something. I hope it's not true." And a few were sharp, even cruel. "How could you let this happen? That's still your daughter." I set the phone down. I wasn't ready to answer anyone yet. By the time I made my way to the kitchen, a police car was already parked across the street. Not for me. For presence. For protection. Detective Harris had warned me this part would be loud. She was right. I made tea and sat at the table, staring at the steam rising from the cup. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I expected shaking, panic, shame. Instead, I felt exposed. Like standing in bright light after living in shadow. Around 10 a.m., there was a knock at the door. This time, it wasn't threatening. It was familiar. Mrs. Ellis from next door stood there, her face tight with worry. "I brought soup," she said softly, "in case you didn't feel like cooking." I stepped aside and let her in. "Thank you," I said. She set the container on the counter and looked at me carefully. "They're talking," she said. "I know," I replied. She hesitated. "I just want you to know, some of us understand." Some. Not all. That was enough. By noon, it was everywhere. Someone had leaked details. Not names. Not yet. But enough. Enough for whispers to turn into looks. Enough for my quiet life to crack open. I decided to leave the house. Not to hide, but to remind myself I still belonged to the world. I put on a simple dress, flat shoes, and walked to the corner store. Every step felt heavier than the last. 2 people stared. One woman nodded kindly. A man turned away. I kept walking. At the store, the cashier paused when she saw me. Then she said gently, "You holding up?" "Yes," I replied. And for the first time, I truly meant it. When I got home, Detective Harris was waiting in her car. She stepped out when she saw me. "We wanted to let you know before you heard it elsewhere," she said. "Formal charges are being filed." I swallowed. "Against Marable?" I asked. "Yes," she replied, "and others." I closed my eyes. This was it. The point of no return. "She's blaming you," Harris added quietly. "Not publicly, but emotionally." I let out a slow breath. "I expected that," I said. Harris nodded. "She says you betrayed her." I looked at the sky for a moment. "No," I said calmly. "She betrayed me, I just stopped pretending." That afternoon, the call came. A private number. I answered. "Mama," Marable said, her voice breaking. "They're saying my name." I closed my eyes. "I know," I said. "You told them everything," she accused. "I told the truth," I replied. There was silence. Then anger. "You ruined my life," she shouted. I held the phone away from my ear for a moment. Then brought it back. "No," I said quietly. "I refuse to ruin mine." Her voice dropped. "They're looking at me like I'm a monster," she whispered. I felt the ache rise. "I never wanted this for you," I said. "Then why didn't you protect me?" she cried. I answered honestly. "Because protecting you meant destroying myself." She sobbed. For a moment, she sounded like the child she used to be. But then she said something that changed everything. "You should have gone down with me." The words hit hard. Clean. Clear. And final. I said nothing. Neither did she. The call ended. That was the moment something inside me closed. Not my heart. My guilt. That evening, the news vans came to the end of the street. They didn't come close, but they waited, like vultures circling. I closed my curtains and turned on the lights. Let them see me standing. I sat alone and thought about motherhood, how it's taught as endless sacrifice, how no one talks about the moment when sacrifice turns into erasure. I had crossed that line years ago. I just hadn't known it. Before bed, I checked my phone one last time. A message from Nolan. "You did the hardest part, don't doubt that." I replied, "I won't." As I lay in bed, sleep didn't come easily. But peace did. Slowly, carefully, like a stranger learning where to sit. Tomorrow would be harder. Courtrooms, questions, judgment. But tonight, I allowed myself to rest. Because the world finally knew the truth. And I was still standing. Judgment did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces. In looks. In pauses. In the way people said my name a little slower than before. I woke up that morning, knowing this day would ask something from me I had never been asked before. Not courage. Not patience. But honesty with myself. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Not in temperature. In feeling. The walls were tall and pale, like they were designed to make people feel small. I walked in slowly, my back straight, my hands calm at my sides. Detective Harris walked a few steps behind me, not close enough to look protective, not far enough to look careless. I was not on trial, but it felt like I was. People stared. Some whispered. Some pretended not to see me. I recognized a few faces from church. One woman caught my eye, then looked away quickly. Another nodded just once, like she was afraid someone might notice. I kept walking. I had learned something important these past weeks. You can't control who understands you. Only whether you understand yourself. Inside the room, I sat on a wooden bench and waited. The sound of shuffling papers echoed. Someone coughed. Somewhere, a door slammed shut. And in all that noise, my mind went quiet. I thought about Maribel. Not the woman she had become. The child she used to be. The girl who used to run into my arms after school. The teenager who used to slam doors and then come back later to apologize. I wondered when love stopped being enough, and when fear started doing the talking instead. "Mrs. Blackwell." I looked up. A clerk stood in the doorway, calling my name. I stood and followed her inside. Maribel sat at the other table. She didn't look at me. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her shoulders were stiff. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not weak. Cornered. I sat down and folded my hands in my lap. I did not reach for her. I did not look away. I stayed exactly where I was. When they asked me to speak, my mouth went dry. I stood slowly. The room felt too large. Too quiet. I could feel every pair of eyes on me. "Please state your name," the man said. "Esther Blackwell," I replied. My voice did not shake. That surprised me. They asked simple questions first. About the jewelry. About the laptop. About access. I answered calmly. Fact by fact. No drama. No anger. Just truth. Then came the hard part. "Why did you come forward?" one of them asked. The question hung in the air. I thought about all the answers I could give. Because it was illegal. Because I was scared. Because someone told me to. But none of those were the real reason. I took a breath. "Because I was being erased," I said. The room went still. I realized that staying quiet was costing me my safety, my name, and my life, I continued. And I decided I could not pay that price anymore. I did not look at Maribel when I said it. I did not need to. I felt her shift in her seat. They asked if I loved my daughter. Yes, I replied without hesitation. Then why didn't you protect her? Someone asked. The question cut deep. I swallowed. I did protect her, I said slowly, for many years, and then there came a time when protecting her meant destroying myself. I chose not to do that. That was when Maribel looked at me. Really looked. Her eyes were wet. But there was something else there too. Understanding. Not acceptance, but recognition. The questions ended. I sat down. My heart was pounding now, but it felt earned. Afterward, in the hallway, Maribel stood a few feet away from me. We were not allowed to speak. But she whispered anyway. You could have softened it, she said. I met her eyes. I could have lied, I replied, but then I would have lost myself. She looked away. Outside, the air felt heavy but real. Reporters stood behind barriers. Cameras pointed. Microphones waited. I did not stop. I did not speak. I walked past them and into the sunlight. Later that afternoon, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet again. But this quiet was different. It wasn't empty. It was settled. I thought about what people would say. Some would call me brave. Others would call me cruel. Some would say, that's still your child. They weren't wrong. But they weren't right either. That evening, Nolan called. You did well, he said. I don't feel like it, I replied. That's usually how doing the right thing feels, he said gently. When night came, I stood by the window and looked out at the street. No cars watching. No shadows waiting. Just streetlights and stillness. I knew the next day would bring consequences. Sentences. Separation. Permanent changes. But I also knew this. For the first time in my life, my choices belonged to me. And tomorrow, I would have to decide what kind of life I wanted to build from the truth. Not as a mother covering for a child, but as a woman finally standing on her own. The morning after the hearing, I woke up before the alarm. Not because of fear, because of clarity. The house was quiet, but it no longer felt like it was holding its breath. The walls stood the same. The floor creaked in the same places, yet something inside me had shifted so deeply that even the air felt lighter. I lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the word after. After betrayal. After truth. After losing the version of motherhood I once believed in. This was the after. And it was mine. I got up and opened the curtains wide. Sunlight poured in without asking permission. For years, I had lived as if my role was to block pain for others, even when it meant living in shadow myself. But now, I let the light come in fully. Let it touch everything. I made breakfast slowly. Toast, tea, the same simple meal I'd eaten 100 times before. But this time, I ate every bite. My phone buzzed around 9 a.m. A message from Detective Harris. Final decisions are moving forward today. I wanted you to hear it from me. I read it once. Then again. I felt the familiar ache in my chest, but it didn't knock the wind out of me this time. It sat there, quiet and steady, like grief that had accepted it could not change the past. I replied with a simple, "Thank you for letting me know." Around mid-morning, I stepped outside. Neighbors were out, some waved, some didn't, some watched from behind curtains. I waved anyway. Not to prove anything, but because I was no longer hiding. Mrs. Ellis crossed the street and joined me at the fence. "How are you holding up?" she asked gently. "I'm standing," I replied. "That's enough for today." She nodded. "That's more than enough," she said. By noon, the news was official. Maribel would face consequences. Not the kind that make headlines dramatic. The kind that change the shape of a life. When I heard it, I sat down. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I placed my hand on my chest and breathed. because the outcome, whatever it was, no longer rested on my shoulders. My phone rang in the afternoon. A number I recognized. Maribel's lawyer. "Mrs. Blackwell," he said carefully, "your daughter wanted me to pass on a message." I closed my eyes. "What message?" I asked. She said she finally understands why you did what you did." My throat tightened. "And," I asked, "and she said she hopes one day you'll forgive her." I let the silence stretch. Then I replied, "Understanding is a start." That evening, I sat at the table and took out a notebook. Not to write a statement. Not to explain myself. But to plan. For the first time in decades, my future was not shaped around cleaning up someone else's mess. I wrote simple things. Fix the garden. Join the walking group at the community center. Travel to see the ocean again. Small dreams. Honest ones. As the sun set, I thought about motherhood. How no one prepares you for the moment when love and self-respect stand on opposite sides of the room. How choosing yourself feels like betrayal until you realize it's survival. I had loved my daughter fiercely. I still did. But love without boundaries had nearly erased me. And I would not disappear quietly anymore. Later that night, I received one final message. From Maribel. Short. Careful. "I see you now." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed back, "I hope one day you learn to see yourself too." I turned the phone off. I stood in the living room and looked around. This house had seen my worst days. It had also just witnessed my strongest choice. I placed my hand on the wall and whispered, "We made it." If you're hearing my story right now, I want you to understand this. Being a mother does not mean being a shield forever. Love does not mean lying for someone else's darkness. And protecting yourself is not abandonment. It is courage. My daughter stole my jewelry and disappeared. That night, I logged into her dark past. But what I found there didn't destroy me. It woke me up. And when everything was taken away, I finally chose the life that was still waiting for me. Speech balloon, if this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful grandma stories. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. You are not alone.